Lesson 6-13. Rename fractions as decimals. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to express fractions and mixed numbers as decimals. So to rename a fraction as a decimal, divide the numerator by the denominator. Then place a decimal point after the numerator and in the quotient. And last you divide and you add zeros as needed. So when we take a look at the example, to write 3/4 as a decimal, we would first divide the numerator by the denominator. So we would do 4 goes into 3. Just looking at that, I know 4 is not going to go into 3, so I need to put that decimal point that's always there, but we don't usually write it. I'm going to put a couple zeros out there because remember, there's always that decimal point and the zeros out there, so I'm not changing this number at all. So 4 goes into 30. I'm going to bring my decimal point straight up. So 4 goes into 30 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. That's 2. Bring down the 0. 4 goes into 20 5 times. So I added those zeros that I needed out there, and now I have my decimal. 3/4 equals 0.75 as the decimal. Okay, let's try doing 2/5. Do this one right along with me. So we're first going to divide the numerator by the denominator. So 5 goes into 2. I know it doesn't, so I'm going to put my decimal and a couple zeros out here. I'm going to start off with 2, and if I need more, I can always add more later. So 5 didn't go into 2, and I bring my decimal point up. 5 goes into 20 4 times. 5 times 4 is 20. Subtract and 0. So I didn't need that extra one. Right here I have 2/5 equals 0.4. Okay, I want you to try this one on your own. I want you to try 1/2 as a decimal point. So go ahead, work that out, pause the video, and then come back and check. Okay, our first step is to divide the numerator by the denominator. So 1 divided by 2. I'm going to put my decimal point and a couple zeros to start off with. So 2 didn't go into 1. Bring my decimal point straight up. So now I have 2 goes into 10. 2 goes in there 5 times. 2 times 5 is 10. Subtract, and I have 0. So 1/2 equals 0.5. Okay, so sometimes we need to rename a mixed number as a decimal. So we'll first separate the mixed number into a whole number part and a fraction part. Then rename the fraction part as a decimal. And then we'll add the whole number part to the decimal. So let's take a look at the example so we can see what that looks like. So our example is 9 1/16. And we need to rename that as a mixed number. So we first separate it into a whole number part, which is our 9, plus that fraction part, 1/16. Now we need to rename the fraction part as a decimal. So we will divide the numerator by the denominator, which is 16. I'm going to put a couple zeros out here. So 16 doesn't go into 1. So that would be a 0 and bring the decimal up. 16 doesn't go into 10, but 16 does go into 100 6 times. So 6 times 16, and that equals 96. And then I subtract. I have 4 left. Bring down the 0. 16 goes into 40 2 times. So then 2 times 16 equals 32. And you subtract, and I have 8. So I need to add another 0. I'll just try 1. So 80. So 80, or 16 goes into 80, 5 even times. So I have my fraction now as being, or turned into this decimal, 0.0625. So now I need to add that number we're going to remember it says then add the whole number part to the decimal. So here's my whole number part, and I need to add it to this. So that would be 9.0625. Okay, let's try 7 and 4/5. So we first need to remember separate them out. So we add our fraction and our whole number, 7 plus 4/5. Then we take our fraction and we need to turn that into a decimal. So we're going to divide 4 divided by 5. And I always start out with 2 to begin with, 2 extra zeros. So 5 didn't go into 4. 5 goes into 40, 8 even times. 8 times 5 is 40, and I subtract, I have 0. So my fraction is 0.8. Then we add them together. 7 plus 0.8 equals 7.8. Okay, I want you to try 15 and a half on your own. Pause the video and come back and check. Okay, for 15 and a half, we're going to separate those out. So I have 15 plus 1/2. Now I need to divide my numerator by the denominator. So I have 1 divided by 2. And I would get 0.5. So I have 15 now plus 0.5, and that would equal 15.5. Is that what you got? I hope so. Go ahead and stop the video now and work through problem 28, and then turn the video back on for the next part of the lesson. So here's a shortcut for renaming fractions. When a fraction has a denominator that is a factor of a power of 10, you rename as an equivalent fraction with a denominator that is a power of 10, and then you read the fraction, then write the decimal. So our example is 12/25. So we think 25 is a factor of 100. So we can change that fraction, and in order to get that to equal 100, we would have to multiply it by 4. So we have to multiply the top by 4. So 12 times 4 is 48, and 25 times 4 is 100. So that's an equivalent fraction, but now we have it over 100. So we just read this, 48 hundredths. Well, we know how to write that as a decimal, 48 hundredths. Just like that. So 12/15 equals 48 hundredths. So let's try another one using that shortcut. Okay, we have 3/20. We know that 20 goes into 100 evenly, so we can use that, and we'll multiply. 20 times 5 would give us 100, so we have to multiply the top by 5. So that would equal 15 over 100. Now we have our fraction, and now we need to just read that fraction, 15 hundredths. And then we just write that down, 15 hundredths. Okay, I want you to try 7/25. Pause the video and come back and check. Okay, in my head I know 25 goes into 100 evenly, and I have to multiply that by 4 in order to get that. So times 4 on the top and bottom. And that would equal 28 on the top and 100 on the bottom. So then I say 28 hundredths, and that's what I would write, 28 hundredths. Okay, remember this shortcut only works if your denominator goes evenly into any power of 10, like 10, 100, 1000, and so on. Go ahead and finish up your problems for today and rewatch any parts that you need to rewatch.